Dog, it's time to rock. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the channel. As usual, it is always a pleasure to introduce a special guest to the channel. I'm going to introduce him. His name is Todd. You can see him. He's handsome fella with a beard. Handsome fella with a beard.
That's right. All us beard fellows are handsome. How's it going, Andrew?
Good to see you, Todd. It's like
too,
I say, it's a pleasure to get you onto the channel and have a chat. We've been talking about doing this for a while, ladies and gentlemen, and it's something that obviously we love to share with you. How a channel like this that we have here, how it works, and how we meet people, and then we try and get together and try and work out a time and a day, Todd, that works and fits into. It's not easy. This world's a big world, brother.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, being that you guys are on the other side of the world, which still blows my mind that I'm sitting here just having a conversation with somebody on the other side of it. Like, wow, it's mind-boggling. But no, thank you, man, for having me. I love being here. I love the show. Where's Simon and Brad?
I'm sorry, mate. You've got the short end of the deal. You just got me today.
I'm totally kidding, man. But say hi to them for me. They should be here. No, you're right. It is hard making this work. We've been talking about it for a while, so thanks for having me.
No problem, man. We're one of the main ingredients, one of the main catalysts for you and I touching base and connecting through social media is in the chat. There he is there. Robert, also known as Bob.
Another beard fellow.
Who's responsible for this, Todd.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. We're part of a cult. That's like okay. That. We love it. But Bob, thanks for joining us. But you're right. It's weird to think about. We hooked up all because of those guys. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's one of the great things about social media. And there's some awesome cats in the chat too. So soon we'll do a shout out to everybody. But you're right, Todd. You know, one of the great things about you and I connecting. And here's another one. And I understand you've met and hung out with Amy. There she is. She's in the chat as well.
Happy birthday, Amy. It's Amy's birthday today. So we have to, yes, Amy, happy birthday. Thanks for checking in. On her birthday. Wow, we're honored.
Absolutely. Amy is one of the admins on our Facebook group, Todd, and she does a wonderful job there. She's
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, she jumped into the position, and, you know, we've had a couple of issues. You always have issues with people and opinions and things like that, you know, and we try not to bend or be too rigid on anything that we do with our social media platforms. But I gotta say, having Amy there looking after things and being part of the crew is wonderful. This love for this band, Peter Green, you know, it's just united a lot of us, Todd.
It's unbelievable. It's crazy. Amy and I have interacted, and I've seen her name online for what feels like a million years. And we just missed each other at the VIP book release back at the early part of the year. I was there the night before. She was there the night after. But we just last week, when Jeff and Bob did the thing down at Space in Chicago, we finally hooked up. It was great to meet. Amy's fantastic, great person. It was great to hang out with her for the night.
Awesome. Thank you for passing that on. And again, we want to say, Amy, happy birthday. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for the support that you've given our channel right from the word go too. When we started doing this thing a few years ago, Amy was always on board, offering support, sharing our channel links with people. So that's fantastic. Look, I'm going to do a quick shout out before we get into the chat, and then we'll do another shout out later on to everybody. We always appreciate everybody joining us live. If you're watching us on a replay, please subscribe to our channel and do us a favor. I'll have Todd's social media links attached to this video. So if you're watching on a replay, please go and subscribe to what Todd's doing. And when Todd's talking, I'll drop his YouTube channel here in the chat for people currently watching, maybe to pop over there and support him and what he does. So right at the top, we've got Gretch Zeppelin, all the way from Canada, very, very good friend of the channel. The Rock Professor, Simon Williams, is watching. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for hanging out with us. Christopher Live Sour, another very, very good friend of the channel. Always a pleasure to see you, brother. Brody Hutchins, another Clapton British blues nut.
I know these names.
Yes. Brody is a fantastic guy. Yeah, we're going to do some more bits and pieces with Brody too, ladies and gentlemen, so keep in tune with the channel. And speaking of tunes, there's Greg Roberts' tune. Good to see you, brother. Woo. And, of course, the birthday girl herself, Amy.
Yes.
We'll always mention this man here, the guy with the... actually... It was his birthday too, a couple of days ago.
Yes, yep. We had to publicly say happy birthday to Bob. Yes. Bob is, Jeff took all those pictures, but you got it. Bob, if it wasn't for Bob, we wouldn't have this. He's the guy that, stepped on the gas pedal and made it happen. So we can't thank you enough, Bob.
100%. There's a new name here in the chat, Julie Ann Nimbach. Thank you for joining us.
I know Julie Ann, my friend. Julie Ann,
awesome.
Thanks for checking in.
Hit the subscribe button, Julie Ann, and we'll subscribe back to your channel if you're doing anything on your channel. We really appreciate that. Derek Clacton is here. Good to see you, brother. Thank you. Another very, 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 very good friend of the channel. And I think we have just about everybody. Johnny Winter has a birthday today as well.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yes.
Wow.
Miss him.
Wow. And there's someone else having another birthday.
Oh, Derek St. Holmes. Yes. Wow. That is a good day. But I do have coffee with me, so everybody grab a cup.
Yeah.
You gotta have the coffee.
Oh, I agree. Todd, I like I said to you at the beginning of the show, obviously we're Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green, nuts. You made a good point about Bob taking the initiative to compile, a book, an interview some outstanding individuals and get their thoughts and their opinions about this band. For years, we had the album, didn't we? And we were squinting at looking at all those Fender amps and all those photos, Todd, didn't we? For years, we were trying to work it out. You probably pulled out your magnifying glass, Todd, did you?
Yep. Yes. And I talked to Jeff and Bob about this. They're probably sick of hearing me say it, but but yeah, you're exactly right. You used to sit there and be like, well, it looks like they're playing, and you see this little, it's like, I think artistically it was great because they put, like the negatives on the album and it looked cool, but you couldn't see anything. So I remember year ago, whatever, 2 years ago, whatever, I heard when that book was coming out, I could not believe it. I was like, wow, somebody finally had the idea to put a book out of this. And that guy ultimately is Bob, who,
sure.
So, we can't thank him enough. And just an awesome friend, too. Great guy. I can't say enough things about both those guys, as you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And, our channel's humbled to be part of this great project. And, the Rock Professor's here in the chat, and he'll remember this. The first show he ever did with Carl and I was a Peter Green show. We were talking about Peter Green, and Carl is another. He's a fellow New Zealander, and we decided we'd get together and do a YouTube thing and talk blues, Todd, because we worked together, and he was moving on, and I always enjoyed hanging out talking with Carl. So I was watching some other channels where guys were doing what we do, and I thought, why don't I just do that? Why don't we just do a YouTube channel, and we'll talk about the Stones and Clapton and stuff like that. And then the rock professor, Simon, jumped in right from the word go in the chat and was, contributing in the chat. Then, obviously, we found out he was an Englishman. And we were desperate. We were desperate to get this English guy on, Todd, a little bit older than us, to articulate and talk to us about the significance of Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac, in the context that he understood. And he was quite happy to do it. He jumped on, and if anybody is interested watching a replay, I might even attach that early video that we did, that show on the stream. But it was fantastic.
Yeah. Peter, I mean, it's great to see in the last few years, and the book obviously helps with that. His name is really starting to, it should be a household name like Eric Clapton or something, but it's not. I don't know if it ever will be, but it's great to see it getting out there more. I mean, I'm sure years back you'd say Peter Green and people would say, who? And then or they'd say Fleetwood Mac, and you'd say, oh yeah, with Peter Green. What? The Buckingham Nicks era is all they, and I actually love that. I mean, Lindsey Buckingham, what a player, I love that era too, but not like the Peter Green era, never. That's extra special.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, and it's one of the things that we love talking about on this channel too, is the differences between the two bands. For years and years and years, when I was a young guy, it was always rumours, the Stevie Nicks Buckingham connection. It wasn't until maybe I was about 15 or 16 where an uncle of mine, I don't know what the album was. I don't know. It may have been a greatest hits or a collection, or it may have been English Rose or something like that, that album, and playing that, and then obviously hearing Albatross. And I was familiar with Albatross because that was always a song, Todd, that they used to play on radio here in New Zealand.
Right.
So I was always familiar. So I was trying to make the connection between Albatross and this vision of this Lindsey Buckingham version of the band, and then, worked out actually it wasn't, and then this guy, Peter Green, because I was getting into, at that stage, Eric Clapton, big time, and then just trying to work out that connection of, who this guy Peter Green was. We didn't have the information, Todd, when we were young guys, back in the olden days. We didn't have the internet, Todd. So how were you going to get information?
Well, yeah, it's I remember pretty much very similar to what you're saying, and you couldn't even find the albums. Well, I mean, the Mr. Wonderful and the first, Dog and Dustbin Fleetwood Mac album there, those were Blue Horizon. So you couldn't even... You'd go look in the record store, and it just did that. None of that stuff was there. So I used to go. I used to just always go to the used record stores. People thought I worked in there. I was in them so much. They'd be like, "Can you help me find?" I'd be like, "I don't really work here, but I'm just here every day anyway." but that's just because all the stuff I was getting into, you couldn't get anymore. So that's where I went, and I started finding all that old stuff that was not available anymore. Sure. And the first one I remember, Then Play On, was the first one I found, that because that, being that it came out, I think, on Warner Brothers, that made it a little bit more accessible because it probably had wider distribution. So the first Peter Green stuff I ever heard was actually his later stuff. I found a compilation of like In the Skies and that whole era, and I loved it. I thought that was I was like, well, this is great. I know what everybody's talking about. Little did I know there was a whole other thing that, and then like I said, when I found Then Play On, I just was like, my jaw was hanging on the floor. I was like, this is the same guy. And then I became like obsessed. I went on a quest, taking road trips and anything I could to find to get my hands on. So it's kind of mind boggling today. You can just go online and there it all is. But you're right. Back when we were kids and stuff, you had to really search for it. But looking back, I think that was kind of cool. It really made you appreciate it. I mean, when you finally found it, it was like you won the lottery. It wasn't like, oh, just go online, there it is. It made it worth the hunt, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this, and it might be controversial. I don't know.
Uh-oh. That's okay.
But the fact that you and I and just about everybody else in the chat pre-internet went out on road trips. We did the same thing here in my city. We went up in cars up to Auckland to go and visit record stores, secondhand record stores, and spend all of Saturday going through the records because there were only 3 or 4 here in my town, which didn't have the variety. The fact that you and I and everybody else was doing that because we wanted this gold, the quest for the Holy Grail, puts us in the same camp as the musicians we follow. They did a similar thing with the music. They were on a quest too, not necessarily searching for it because they already had it, but they were on a quest, Todd, to spread it.
Right. Yeah, I feel like you're inside of my head. You are, because you're saying I feel exactly. I couldn't have said it better. Yes, I feel like we're part of a group or a family or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not putting down kids today. That's all they know. That's what they have. That's what they're coming up. If we had that available, we'd be doing the same thing today. That's how you find the music. But we didn't have it available at that time. So the fact that you look back and you're like, wow, I like drove like across the country and stuff to get a vinyl. It's kind of crazy to think about, but it's cool. It puts you in this group of, like you just said, of other people that do that you can relate to. It's a cool thing.
Well, these stories that we read and hear about, Clapton, I forget where he mentions it, but they used to go on a bus trip. They went on a bus trip to someone's house, knocked on the door. The mother answered the door, called out to the guy, and he came to the door, and they just wanted to look at the record cover of a record. That was it. That's a true story.
I love it. But see, to me, I don't know. You get that too, and I'm sure everybody wants. But there's some people you would tell that to, and they'd be like, "Wow, man, you need to find something to do with your life." But you either get it or you don't get it. I know you do, so I think that's great. I totally relate. That's a great story.
It's somewhere. It might be in his biography. It was a Muddy Waters album or something like that, and they just to have a look, just to look and hold this thing. And again, a lot of us, and I'll go through. I'm sorry I haven't been looking at the chat. Are all, I'm sure, very familiar with those experiences pre-internet. We're on this quest, we're on this thing, and it hasn't changed, because what we do here, Todd, on this channel with the Rock Professor and Brad and all the guests that we have and everybody that's attached to what we do here, it's the same thing. It's just organic fans sharing our experiences, our thoughts, our opinions, and forming this community. Look, You know, you're in America, I'm in New Zealand. We've got people all around the world in the chat joining us. It's working.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that I instantly loved about your guys' show. I mean, again, you're inside of my head, but it's so much. It's just about exactly what we're talking about, an organic thing, the music, the people. That it's not about money or how many subscribers you have, although that's good. But I mean, it's not about that. It's about, so it's very cool to find people on the other side of the world that, hopefully we'll get to meet face to face someday, Andrew. But for now, this is great.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because subscribers for a channel, for a project that you're involved in, it's important, Todd, because it gives you validation.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely
it gives,
right.
About what the collective thing that you're part of and the collective thing that you're doing is working, and people enjoy that. So, and it's the same thing. The Rock Professor and I and Brad we always look at anything that we do here on the channel. It's like a gig, Todd. You go to a gig, and whether there's 5 people or 50 or 150 people or 1,500 people watching you, you're going to get the same satisfaction. You're going to go out there and you're going to do it, and that's the enjoyment. It's the same thing that we do here, whether we have 5 people watching the stream or 15 views. The fact is, we treat it as a gig and we enjoy it. And the fact that people do tag on to what you do, it's pleasing. It gives you some validation.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's mind-boggling to know that there's to find people out there that feel the same way. Like I said, I feel like you're inside of my head right now. You're saying, you can just keep talking, Andrew. You're saying everything I would want to say.
Well, actually, this show's not about me. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, what you're saying though, seriously, you're spot on. I couldn't say it better if I tried. So that's awesome.
But you do get a special guest, ladies and gentlemen, and you have this instant connection. So Todd and I have got that. So we're just talking like as Brad and the Rock Professor often say. We're just mates down at the pub when they're having a beer and I'm having a Diet Coke,
or coffee.
Or a coffee, just hanging out. And but look, I agree with you. I think it's one of those great things, and we've been fortunate enough to have some great guests and some great projects attached and cooperating with what we're trying to do here. That's helped build what we've got. We were talking in the green room before, Todd. There was a stage when the Rock Professor first jumped on and joined us. We had 100 subscribers. I remember when we got 200 subscribers, 300, 400, 500, 600, and 1,000 subscribers. But there's certainly something that happens on YouTube when you reach 1,000 subscribers. Reaching that 1,000 mark ain't easy. It's not easy, Todd.
No, like you said, you and I were talking about this. I'm relatively new to the YouTube thing. I mean, I've had Facebook and that for a while, but about a year ago, a lot of my friends were like, there's all these guitar shows on YouTube. You should be doing one of these. You should go on and turn all the experiences you've had. Just go on and talk on that. I don't know. And finally I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And like you said, right out of the gate, I said to myself, look, I'm just going to have fun with it. It's not going to be a competition, or if people like it, that's great. I'm just going to do and have fun with it and see what happens. But it is hard to get people to subscribe, because I've been trying to get those subscribers up, and it's a hard thing to get people to hit. It's kind of weird. People watch stuff, but even if they like it, they just won't hit that button. And I don't really understand why, because it's free. It doesn't cost anything to hit that button. You're helping out the thing that you're watching, that you want to support, that you like. So it's like, just click. It's an easy enough thing for people to hit the subscribe button, but it's hard to get them to do it.
Look, you're right. And it's one thing that we do here on this channel. We ask people, and we'll attach your channel to our channels page here. We ask every show we do, every show, it's not once, twice, maybe 3 or 4 times. We ask people to subscribe to what we're doing here, but also our friends on our channels page. Because as you correctly identified, Todd, hitting the subscribe button costs you nothing, but it helps the channel immensely. And, again, Simon will attest to this. We never asked for subscribers for years when we just used to jump on and do the show and say, see you guys later, bye-bye, thanks for hanging out, see you next week in the show. And then a couple of people, Todd, said, guys, Andrew, you got to ask for subscribers. You got to, and, so we started asking for subscribers. And we do that too. Obviously, we do that. But we were lucky enough and fortunate enough to have Facebook groups, Todd, attached to our channel. We've got All About the Blues, which has about 13,000 subscribers. We've got a Fleetwood Mac, we've got a Eric Clapton, and we've got a Van Halen Facebook group, which has, altogether, I think they would have about 5,000 members. Small.
Yeah.
By Facebook standards, because some of the Facebook groups that we follow have got like 100,000. But enough, though, for us to share any of our video links there to get people to jump across. And one other key too, Todd, when you do something, if anybody else is watching, ask people to share your link on their social medias. We've been fortunate, Todd, to have people do that. Share the stream link on their platforms.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we'll get 20 or 30 subscribers. So that helps.
Yeah. Well, no, like I said, anybody with advice to get, like I said, I'm new pretty much to YouTube. I feel like there was a big guitar party going on, and I kind of came walking in the door super late, and everybody's having a party over here, and I'm like, hi guys, I'm here, and it's like I'm definitely late to the party. There's guys that have been doing it for a long time now. I've been doing it about a year, so but it's fun, and I just keep telling myself that's what it's supposed to be about. You can't, if a week goes by and you don't get a lot of new subscribers, you can't be like, oh, that's it, I'm gonna quit doing it. As long as you're keeping it fun and you love doing it, then that's why I'm doing it, So the people I do have with me are small but mighty. They're very supportive.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. And it's if it's not fun, it's not worth doing, So that's always the key. But yeah, look, I agree with you, brother. I think it's one of those interesting things too. One thing I'll say, and the internet, YouTube is a huge place. And there's lots of room. There's room for everybody. There's room for everybody. We've had experiences here on the channel where there was a relationship with a couple of other channels, and it's, interesting that, some of the stories and some of the stuff that happens behind the scene. But I'll just tell you, there's room for everybody to go out there and do lots of things. And what we do, Todd, too, everybody who subscribes to our channel, we subscribe back. So do you do that? Do you subscribe to every? Yeah.
Absolutely. I tell everybody that. I'm like, if you subscribe, I think that's, I've always heard you say that. And I think that's awesome that you do that, because, there's a lot of channels that don't.
I'm going to swear here. That pisses me off.
Yeah, I know. Hey, the legendary Jeff Lowenthal is here.
Yeah.
Jeff, woo.
Hey, Jeff, nice to see you, brother. Thank you. But
no, you're right. It does. It pisses me off too.
So, sorry for changing the subject just a little bit, but I'm sure Bob and Jeff won't mind me saying this, but we're at some stage we're going to have a debrief on the channel about the gig that they did that you attended. So we're going to we're gonna get together and talk. Would love to get you on and you can share your thoughts and experiences about that gig too, Todd. So keep that open.
Yeah, that was it was an awesome night. Great time.
Yeah, but getting back to subscribers, no, these channels that solicit subscriptions and don't subscribe back. But just to give you an idea, though, of, I thought I knew YouTube, but when I go and subscribe to some of these channels, my gosh, what people do on YouTube is just amazing.
No, it is. It's weird to think, going back to driving across the country to see a vinyl cover that, like, back in that, like, it's gotta, if you would have talked about YouTube back then, it would have been like, what? I mean, this is literally space age technology. But it's weird because, a lot of my students and stuff that are kids, they this is all they've ever known. It's been around since they've come onto this planet, and they don't, to them, you're like, oh man, I mean, YouTube is like amazing. Yeah, it's great. It's just like they don't know a world without it. So it's like, but I know for me, like you're talking about, it's like, wow, it's just mind boggling that, does anybody, I still collect CDs and DVDs and all that stuff because I'm a freak, but a lot of people don't bother. They just, if they want to watch a live clip, go on YouTube, there it is, and they just don't really buy any of that stuff or anything. But plus, I like to support the artists too. So,
look, I agree, and I think you raise a good point that I think that we should share with people watching. You may have your Apple device, your iPad, and you may have a subscription to Apple TV, and you might have all the Crossroad gigs and all the concerts there, all the Stone stuff. But if the internet is down, you can't watch, but with a DVD and a DVD player, and you got power, Todd, so
yeah.
Take Todd's advice. Go make sure you've got DVD copies of your favorite blues gigs or music gigs or whatever, so that when things are down, you can always watch them.
Right. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I got there's a bunch of them floating. Jeff Beck live in Tokyo.
Yeah,
it's great stuff. But yeah, I always get the stuff on DVD and CD. It's I just like to physically have it. But
okay, so we're going to we did have some questions here, but because, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I doing?
I can hear you. I'm like, as long as I can hear you, that's fine.
I'm scaring people. Look, before I get on to ask you a couple of the questions, we have to follow this request here. So Bob's asking you to tell us your chess story.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming the one he's talking about is my wife and I, Connie, are the first couple that got married at Chess Records, right in the room where Muddy and Howlin' Wolf and all the great guys, Stones, recorded 2120 South Michigan Avenue in 2002, November 9th. We, had the room, and we had a minister in there, judge, I'm sorry, and set the whole room up, and then the altar and the whole thing, and walked down, said our vows, and I played a song for Connie and that I wrote, and we were the first couple that got married in that room. So it was it was cool. I mean, there's, again, you either get it or you don't, but when you're standing in that room, there's vibes, spirits, whatever you want to call it. I mean, not only was I shaken because I was getting married, but I was shaken because the ghost of Howlin' Wolf was in the room, with us. So it was a very cool thing. It was an honor for us to be able to do that. Elvis Costello was there that day because the chess building, you can go in and tour it, and he was just in there seeing. So there's a picture of Connie that we have somewhere where he took a picture with her. I hadn't gotten there yet. The bride had showed up early, so he took a picture with Connie. And then the night before, George Harrison had been in there, and the lady kept saying, George Harrison said he might come back today. And I'm like, come on now. If one of the Beatles walks in at our wedding, he didn't come, but it was like, through the whole thing, I just kept looking out the door. Is that George Harrison? Is that George Harrison? Is that George Harrison? He never came, but it was just cool. It's like, wow. So a lot of people go there still. I mean, obviously it's a historical place, but yeah, we were the first ones that got married in there. So that was really cool.
Wow. That's a great story. Thank you, Bob, for prompting Todd to share that with us.
Yes, thank you, Bob.
I suppose the book. Buy the book. If you haven't bought the book, we'll attach a link to Bob and Jeff's book here for you guys to go and buy that book. I had my review. I did a review for Amazon, and Amazon refused my first review. I had to go back and redo my review.
What did they say? Why or no?
They don't say why, but I didn't swear in the review. I didn't do any self-promotions in the view. I just said, I love this book. This book is mandatory. All Fleetwood Mac fans should have this book. Peter Green fans. In fact, anybody that loves chess records and blues music wants it. Oh, but they didn't like my review, so I had to redo it.
Do another one where you swear, and maybe they'll use it.
You just can't win.
You can't. I don't know what some of that stuff like that. It's like, what? Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like a computer just kind of reading the review and they toss it out for. I hate it when stuff like that happens because there's really no reason why nobody can explain. But I don't know.
Big Brother doesn't like me. That's okay. I'm fine with that.
I said that's okay.
Having a bit of fun here, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh
yeah,
yes.
As you guys can tell, and it's all like I said to you guys before, this is like a gig. We had a set list, but this is just the jam. So
Wow, you are in my head. That's something I would say. You're exactly right. We threw the set list out the window.
Well,
I love it.
We might come back and do part 2, ladies and gentlemen, with the set list if you're lucky.
Oh, that's great.
Look, Todd. Look, we got to ask this question. We'll get semi-professional here on the channel.
Okay.
So obviously the blues music is very important to everybody here. Christopher Live Savas put this awesome comment. If you don't know chess, you don't know the blues. Yeah. If you don't know chess, you don't know rock and roll. I'm going to take it one step further and say that. So tell us how you began your journey into this music that we love. This music that we're all on a mission to spread. Tell us how you started, how you got onto this gig.
Probably the way a lot of people do, or like you said, even the guys Clapton and them that would go out looking for vinyl album covers or whatever. Rock was the first music I ever heard in my life was country music, traditional country. My grandfather played in bluegrass country bands, and that's why I grew up with Hank Williams Sr. and Johnny Cash. I still love all that stuff. But then, of course, as a kid, you get into Jimi Hendrix and Van Halen was huge. I still love Van Halen, and then you start reading these interviews. I always love it when you put the magazine covers up of the old guitar. I've still got all those, just like you. We're brothers, Andrew. But I've got the same ones. You read in there and you'd hear Eddie or anybody, Clapton, Jeff Beck, talking about, and sooner or later you start seeing these names like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Robert Johnson, and it's like, who are so I was always, like we were talking about earlier, taking road trips to find vinyl. I mean, I wasn't just into music. It was like no sports, no, this is it. I was full on in. So I want, the minute I hear those names, I go, wait a minute, these are the guys that they learned from. Well, they must know what they're doing because I love these guys. So I want to know who these guys are. And I'd go out and try to find a Howlin' Wolf album and stuff. And the first one I found was the Rockin' Chair album with, man, I hear a lot of people say that the first time they put it on, they were almost like scared because Howlin' Wolf, I mean, what a voice. And I just became upset. It's that same thing. I heard one, and I'm like, wow, I got to get more of this stuff. So then I just started buying any and all of it, Little Walter, Muddy Waters, all the older stuff, Lonnie Johnson, Robert Johnson, all those guys. And then that opens a whole other door of other guitar players, Mike Bloomfield and obviously Peter Green, who we were talking about, and Roy Buchanan and all these. And it just, there wasn't enough hours in the day, still aren't, to absorb all of it that's out there. And so that's how I got into it, was kind of just through reading about. I didn't really initially hear any of it or anything on the radio or anything because nobody played it. But I was the kind of person, and still am, that if I read about somebody, I was like, I want to know what that guy sounds like, because if this guy, Jeff Beck or whoever, is saying he was a hero of his, I know I'm going to like it then, and I'll go find it. And that's how and then I just was like, you start seeing Chess, all this stuff is coming out of Chess. So then you have to, try to buy all the old Chess stuff and whatever. And it's just mind boggling, the stuff that came out of that place. It's just great stuff.
Folks,
hopefully I'm not babbling.
No, folks, that's why it's really, really important to learn to read. That's why your mum and dad wanted you to read, so that you could read these articles that Todd's talking about.
Yes.
where Keith Richards is talking about Robert Johnson. And then, Eric Clapton in 1985 in the Guitar Player magazine is talking about Robert Johnson. And then, as Todd said, we've discussed this many times on our channel. That's one of the reasons why we have a lot of respect for these English cats, Todd, because, they spoke about it. That they were talking about it. Reporters and journalists back then were writing this down. There's this famous clip, and we mention it many times on this channel. It's Shindig. It's in the States. They're all in Stones are there. They're interviewing. They're talking to Brian Jones and Mick Jagger. And Mick Jagger is waffling on, as Mick always does. And Brian Jones just stuck his face in the mic and said to the guy, "How about you shut up? We shut up, and Mick shuts up, and we listen to Howlin' Wolf."
Yep. Can I? What? I know I've said this a million times, Andrew, but you are in my head because this is a perfect segue. If you don't mind me sharing, I know when I was
Please
going to
do.
be on the show, I got stuff out that this will blow your mind. This is let me see if I can get it in the camera here. That is the Stones on Shindig with Howlin' Wolf. And that is not a copy. That's the real AFTRA contract for Shindig that Howlin' Wolf signed. And it's all matted and framed in a thing. This was in a lot of blues museums and stuff. And through some people I know and stuff, I was lucky to get, I don't know if you can see, I'm trying to get it in the camera here, but you can see on there, it says Howlin' Wolf Shindig at the bottom. And Howlin' Wolf actually filled that out himself. And so this is a cool, and then on the back here, it's even got his old card there for the union. I'm doing a terrible job, but that's Chester Burnett, and that was the Wolf's union card that was stuck on the back. So this is a cool piece I was able to get years ago, but that's the actual AFTRA, as they called it, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, and that's the actual contract for the Wolf on Shindig. So it's weird that you're bringing this up.
Wow.
But that's a super, I'm so honored to have that piece, because I love Howlin' Wolf. To me, there's blues singers, and then there's Howlin' Wolf. He's in a league. I just I can't say enough things about that guy. He's what a man, the power and everything you hear from that guy. Never got to see him live, obviously, because I was too young, but from what I've heard, when you'd go see him, it was people were scared.
And I love that. I love that mystique, that legendary status that's growing up since he's passed, and they certainly flowered and propagated even at the time in the mid 60s, when he was alive, when he was, part of the scene. I love that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sure everybody's got similar comments. When you're listening to Cream, Clapton at Cream, and you listen to his, their versions of songs on Goodbye Cream, and then, you're 14, 15 years old, and a friend says, here, they've made a cassette recording of Howling Wolf, and you take that home and you listen to that, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's, well, I mean, and as you probably know, that we've all heard that story, Sam Phillips, who, ran Sun Records down in Memphis, said that, discovered Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, all those guys, great guys, but his number one, thing that Howlin' Wolf, that was his number one artist, he said, that he discovered. Julianne, my friend, is commenting. Jim McCarty, yes, my friend. Jim is I had his get Jim's CD. Acoustic Ideas.
Can you hold that
Jim's
up,
a great,
please, Todd?
Oh yeah. Jim's a great friend, and he's a heck of a Jim McCarty. A lot of he's Mitch Ryder in the Detroit Wheels. He started out with Buddy Miles Express, Cactus, the Rockets, and he plays by himself with his band Mystery Train now, but that's called Acoustic Ideas. He's got another one that's called Talkin to Myself that I know is right here somewhere. And Jim's a good friend, and it's an honor for me to call him a friend. Him and I jammed out in Detroit several times. Look at me, I'm trying to find a CD, and it's like in a stack of good luck finding it, but I know it's here somewhere. But anyway, I don't know if you're Jim is awesome to me. If you ever listen to the Jimmy Jam on Jimi Hendrix 9 to the Universe, that's Jim McCarty playing with Jimi Hendrix. So McCarty ran with Jimi Hendrix and that whole group, and And yeah, I write for Buddy Guys Legends Blues Letter here in Chicago. Actually, next month, Jeff and Bob's. I'm going to do an article on them that's in there, and I've done a few of them on Jim McCarty. Keep looking back here as I'm trying to find his Talking to Myself CD, which I know is right. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so there's Jim's electric CD, Talking to Myself. If you get a chance to, I know you can email Jim McCarty3 at gmail.com, the number 3, and you can get these. But Jim's a great friend, and I'm all about supporting him because he's a great guy and a great friend.
So if you're watching this on a replay, Todd will send me those links, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll attach those links in the description here and or in the comments afterward for you to go and follow that, because we're all about helping and supporting people here on this channel. I just want to do a bit of a segue. So Christopher's got this great comment there, Buddy Guy. You're talking about Acoustic Blues. Remember that album that he did with Junior Wells in 91, Alone in Acoustic?
Yes. Oh. Yeah. He and he hasn't lost any. I just was that 3 weeks ago. Buddy does a run of shows at his club here in Chicago every January, and he does Tuesday through Sunday, so it's 5-6 shows a week in the whole month of January. He's done that for probably almost 30 years now, and he's I just saw him a couple weeks ago, 86 years old. The guy's walking out on the street in the middle of winter. He leaves the stage. He's out playing. Yeah, if you've ever been to a Buddy Guy show, there people are at the stoplight outside of his club. Here comes this guy walking in front of him with a guitar. He's out on the street. He's 86 years young. I mean, he's still, yeah, man, Buddy is still tearing it up at the top of his game. It's unbelievable. And very inspiring. You see that and you're like, okay, I've got some years left to do this.
Do you remember that scene in it's on Netflix, on Keith Richards' documentary that came out in 2015? Have you seen it?
Yeah. Yep. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And Buddy and Keith are playing pool, and they're drinking moonshine, and Buddy knocks it back, man, and then Keith knocks one back, and you can see Keith is just about
yeah.
And you can see Buddy looking at him. You get the impression Buddy wants to say, "Can't you handle it, man? You can." Hey, what's going?
Yeah, Buddy. It's so great to see because years back, going into the, well, not long, but in the 80s, I'll say, Buddy Guy was just, you'd see him down at the local bar or whatever. He was, just making a living and doing what he can. And then Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan and all those guys kept mentioning him, and that helped to bring him. So it's so great to see where he's at now, because there's nobody alive I can think of that deserves that more than him. I mean, it's great to see he's finally up on a royal status there where he should be. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, Buddy's fantastic. He's definitely the last of the greats, that's for sure.
100%. His biography is fantastic, and also the documentary that came out a couple of years ago. It's well worth seeing. And Todd, again, I think the fact that you mentioned he's one of the last of the greats is fantastic. We've got to remember, folks, ladies and gentlemen, Buddy was a cotton picker.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry, you were cutting out for a second, Andrew. I'm sorry.
It's like I was just reminding people when Buddy was a young guy. He was a cotton picker. That's.
Oh yeah, right.
That's.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to see. There's something about though that that type of thing. Obviously, BB King did that, and all those Howlin' Wolf. I don't know. It's like to live through that experience and then be where a Buddy is today. I don't think it's hard to explain. I don't want to say it makes you play the blues better, but I guess in a way that is what I'm saying. Guys like me or people, I don't think we can ever quite get on that level of coming from a cotton picker to you know, you're never gonna be, I don't know, if you haven't lived that. I think the blues comes out of you in the experiences you've had, and you know, there's not really anybody that was a cotton picker coming up now. So it does something to you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But
you're 100% right, and you know, I'm going to add, you know, another aspect to what Todd said. It's okay for at least the folks North America to have that appreciation a little bit more than I would, and that I do, being here in New Zealand. You know, yeah, because cotton picking and that whole, you know, obviously we know that through the films and through their experiences and through the music and through history, obviously, you know, but that's not part of New Zealand culture, Todd. Do you understand what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you initially get into all that? Did you just hearing it on the radio, or that's a good question to ask you.
Thank you. I'm
turning the tables around here.
I started out listening like a lot of us to the music that, you know, my parents had. I loved the Beatles at a young age. Loved the Beatles, and I loved the Rolling Stones. And I've said this a few times. You know, I went to school when I was 13 or 14, you know, 12, 13, and inevitably you have a conversation talking about music, and I'd always say, oh, I love the Beatles and I love the Stones. And I remember people turning around saying, why would you listen to that shit? That's old music, you know? And I'm going, but I like it. Yeah, you know, so,
yeah.
And then I went to an uncle's house, you know, for a family gathering or something like that, and talking to him, and then he took me into one of his rooms, and he just had all these records, Todd, you know, and just listening to the music from that point. You know, if it's not a family friend, if it's not a friend from school or a neighbor, it's a relative, you know, that's gonna pull you into this music. And like you, and like everybody here in the chat, you know, there was just something about this music, you know, that blew me away. And one of the reasons why we have this channel, that's why it's, you know, one of the shows that we do, the British Electric Blues Show. And we talk about American blues, obviously, on the British Electric Blues Show, because there's that connection, there is that tapestry, there are threads, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking forward to doing a show tomorrow with Brad and Simon. We're going to do the Allman Brothers at Fillmore East.
Wow.
And again, I'm not going to give too much away, but in my introduction, I'm going to talk about how the Allman Brothers were inspired by Clapton and Fleetwood Mac, you know, early on, and how they took the English interpretation of American blues and reinterpreted it again from the Allman Brothers' perspective.
Right. No, Dickie, this was a great stuff laying around here, but yeah, Dickie Bat's one of my favorites. I had something laying here of Dickie's, but I don't know where it went. But yeah, I got to meet Dickie several times. Just a great guy.
Wow.
He hung out on his bus a couple times several years ago, and just a awesome guy, just real humble and down to earth. And to me, Dwayne Allman, obviously, but Dickie Betts, I mean, what a style. You know, that's like such a replicated when that whole Southern rock or whatever you want to call it came out. So many of those guys were playing leads. It sounded like it was Dickie Betts. It was like they were just kind of replicating exactly what he would do. So it's crazy. Dickie's a huge influence. I love the Allman Brothers. Can't say enough stuff about them.
Oh, I've been on an Allman Brothers high for the last 7 days, and yeah, I'm glad that you said those things about Dickie Betts because, you know, just listening to him. But yeah, it's just been phenomenal. But that authenticity though, at that time when the Allman Brothers grabbed this type of music that they were hearing these English cats play, they gave that authenticity that music needed at that time in 68,
Right.
69, 70. Todd, they needed these American guys to do that.
Yeah. That band, and even the second, third or fourth, I guess, because the Allman Brothers reunited with Dan Toller, who I was actually a friend of as well, and unfortunately has passed away now. But then early 90s, Warren Haynes, Alan Woody, I was at so many of those shows, and those guys, man, it's like you had the original band with Dwayne and them, and that lineup to me with Warren and Alan Woody, and when they came back, it's almost neck and neck with where that original lineup was. That was just phenomenal. I mean, Warren Haynes is, to me, one of the guys that's come out in the last 30 years or whatever you want to call it. He's one of the top guys, in my opinion. Warren's a great guy, too.
Look, I agree with you. I think the stuff that he did, you know, in the 2000s with the Allman Brothers and, you know, him and Trucks is just phenomenal. It's just unique in its own category. Chris, you know, there are some great young cats coming through. Marcus King, Tyler Bryant, and the Shakedown as an example. He's been around for, you know, there are some great young cats coming out playing the blues. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's great. I know you had DK on the show last week or whatever. Yeah, it's so great to see, because for a while there that wasn't happening. And it was like, what's good, but it seems like it is. So that's fantastic. I know Buddy Guy always says that the last thing Muddy Waters said to him before he passed away is, don't let this music die, you know, keep the blues alive. And Buddy always talks about that at his shows and stuff, and how it's important to pass that on. So I mean, I teach guitar, and I always, by the second, third lesson, we're doing some blues stuff, right? I mean, I always, especially the kids, get them exposed to that, because got to keep it going.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree, and I think it's one of the things, again, you know, that we do. And, you know, besides you writing your articles and presenting them and recording your thoughts and experiences that way, you're doing that on your channel, you're doing that through your music. We're all part of that process. And, you know, this is where I get a little bit serious here on the channel. You know, everything that we're doing, all the comments that people are putting here in the chat, people are going to go and research, and, you know, generations to come, they're going to say, you know, what's this guy Todd saying about Fleetwood Mac and meeting up with this guy called Bob and Jeff in 2023? Right. You know, and they're going to be referencing that, you know, from their perspective in the future. That's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to happen. We're part of history.
Yeah. Well, it's so great. I've told Jeff and Bob this many times, exactly what you just said. You know, 100 years from now, there'll be people finding this book that'll say, you know, wow, these guys put this book out. That, I mean, it's part of the Fleetwood Mac legacy now. So it's like, I mean, how cool is that? And how cool for us to be here to share it with Jeff and Bob. It's a great thing.
So just give me a second, ladies and gentlemen, while we're talking about books. So Christopher, I can't pronounce his name.
Oh yeah, that's a great
Christopher Hijot.
Let's go with that.
I know that we're friends on social media. If I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, come on and do a show with us and teach me how to pronounce your name properly. But Christopher is working on an in-depth biography on Peter Green. So
I know you and I were emailing about that a few weeks ago, Andrew, and it's I can't wait. That book is great. That came out when there wasn't really a whole lot of other books about Peter Green or anything besides the one that Martin put out, which is another awesome book, and he just put it out again. But that book that you just held up is great for the whole British blues thing. Yeah.
Oh, and the way he writes and what he's written in here, clearly for me, and I'm sure a lot of us who've got this, proves that this guy has the credentials to write a biography on Peter Green. And I'm just remembering now, and I did hear that because I remember the rock professor and I spoke about this. We saw the same Anderton's video. Lee Anderton, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I'm bad with time, was talking about Fleetwood Mac on one of the videos that they do on his channel. And he said that this guy, Christopher, had been in touch with Lee's father because Lee's father went to school with Peter Green.
Wow.
Yeah, so Lee's father had just been interviewed by Christopher. So that's when we first, if the rock professor is here, I'm sure he'll confirm that that's how we first heard it. That's when we, So again, we can't wait, Todd. If this guy is running around interviewing people and doing archaeology, wow.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree. That book is fantastic. I love it.
Thank you, Christopher. It's always a pleasure. Thank you. Your support always means a lot to us.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you. We talk guitars on this show too, and
really?
I promise, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get Todd back for part 2. But you got some guitars?
I have a couple.
you got some guitars handy that you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I do.
Okay, so the rock professor's confirming that thought I had. So that's correct. So if the rock professor is not contradicting my thoughts, it's true. So that's where we heard it. Grab some guitar. Grab a guitar.
Oh, let's see. As far as I'm a big Les Paul guy. I mean, who isn't? But I would have to say this is a 54.
Wow.
With the stop bar tailpiece, no tune-o-matic. My favorite. I mean, a lot of guys don't like these because they're a little bit chunkier neck and whatnot. But I love these. The 54s are, to me, that's when they really nailed it. It's just a stop bar, string it up, P90s, maple top, mahogany body, but it's going the wrong way on the camera. But yeah, it's just these are just beautiful. If I had to pick one Les Paul that I'd always want to go with, it would probably be a 54. To me, that's just tough to beat.
Beautiful guitar. And just doing a bit of research for Dwayne Allman's guitars. He had a 54 that he had there for a while, but sold it to get a 58. Yeah. That's
let me see what else we got here. It's a 57 Junior. Oh. So we got the Leslie West thing going on here. It's a little bit, that's a common thing, like on the headstock, you can see like the tuners deteriorated, so they replaced them with shallers.
Yeah.
But that, you kind of see that all the time. But in really good shape for being a 57. It's been around the block a few times. But again, it's that same thing, stop bar tailpiece, one P90, volume and tone. And it's weird because the Juniors were originally as you know, like, student model
Sure.
entry level guitars, and then guys like Leslie West and them started playing them, and they've taken on like a cult status with a lot of us. And used to be these were kind of a good entry level into the vintage market, but holy cow, these have even gotten when I bought this, I paid next to nothing for it, but not anymore. There's like, I see the prices on these now, I'm like, what? Like, it's just crazy.
Todd, they must be good. They must be good because Johnny Depp plays one live.
Yes, there you go. Right. Uh-oh. We're opening up a can of worms. Well, yeah, obviously that takes us down the Jeff Beck path. I just saw Johnny and Jeff 4 months ago here in Chicago. Who would have thought that we'd be remembering Jeff now, October of 2022. And I'm getting a little off topic here, but yeah, Jeff was, my God, man, the guy was, it was weird with him. There was never any like, oh, he's a legend, so go see him. He doesn't quite play like he used to, but there was none of that. I mean, I was on the top of his game right up until the end. I couldn't believe, the show I saw him do back in October, I've never seen him play better. He was just, he always came out like he was trying to prove himself, and he always did. So I just, as I think we all were, just my jaw hit the floor when I read online and his family posted he had passed away, because he was in better shape than I am. So like, I don't know what, I was just shocked. I thought Jeff would live to be 200, but anyway, yeah, he was with Johnny Depp at that show, so that became somewhat controversial. But
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned Chicago. So, are you a native of Chicago?
I am not. I was born in Vermont, which is
Okay.
like about as far away from Chicago as you could get.
Yeah.
And I so grew up, spent summers in Vermont, milking the cows, and my aunt had a farm up there, and then lived all over the country. Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and a lot of times closer to the bigger cities. So it was a weird way. It was a good way to grow up, because I got the best of both worlds. You go back to the city and tell your friends about the cows and stuff, and they'd be looking at you like, what the heck are you talking? And then you'd go to the country and tell them about what was going on in the city, and they'd be like, well, it was a good mix of people. My uncle Dell, who might be watching this, I'm not sure, he played guitar. My grandfather did, in bluegrass bands, and that was the first time as a kid, I grew up with that. At the end of the night when we'd get together, we wouldn't, well, back then you didn't have phones, but we'd all sit in the living room. My grandfather and my uncle would put on a show, and they'd play guitars and fiddle, and my grandfather ran a Texaco station in Fairhaven, Vermont, and they used to pull the cars out at night, and the band would set up in there. And I was like, my first memories of life was seeing those guys. And I was just like, I want to do that, and that's what made me, that's where it all came from right there. But that was all up in Vermont. So no, I ended up in Chicago through just moving around as a kid. We moved around a lot. And then I finally ended up here, was old enough to stay on my own, and decided to, because I like Chicago. And I've been here a long time now, but no, I'm not. I was not born here, no. But it's a great city. They got great pizza here.
It's interesting that you should mention bluegrass, because I'll take any opportunity I can to talk about bluegrass. I'll sneak it in here into any of these shows. I've got a D28 there, I've got a mandolin up there, and I've got a clawhammer banjo in my lounge. I discovered bluegrass about 6 years ago. I worked with New Zealand's premier Earl Scruggs banjo player, a guy called Paul
nice.
Trenwith, who was part of the founding member of the Hamilton County Bluegrass Band. Anyway, in the late 60s and early 70s, Paul Trenwith, he took his band to America. He's played with all the greats, met Monroe. He took bluegrass to Australia, to a lot of these festival gigs and stuff like that. Anyway, so I was working with Paul and knew a little bit about bluegrass. Knew a bit. I was a blues man, Todd. I'm a blues man. I'm a blues man, brother. And then he was, and I was talking to this guy who was a lot older than me, and his eyes would light up anytime he would talk about music, Todd. Anytime he was talking about music and performing and playing, and I thought to myself, I gotta grab hold of what this guy's got in his eyes. I need to grab something, because there's something that's burning in this guy. I want to touch it. So he gave me some CDs. He also hosts a bluegrass program here on our community radio station here in the city that I live in. So he gave me some CDs. Todd, I spent the whole weekend. I did nothing. I just ate. I didn't wash. I didn't do anything. I just listened to bluegrass for a whole weekend. I became an addict. And I've spoken to some of my friends since, and they're saying, bluegrass? Let's be honest, some people just don't get it. And they're like, what's
right?
I said,
right.
It's the same thing as blues music, as Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters. It's the authenticity. It's the reality. It's everything that these artists are experiencing is coming through in the music. I see no dichotomy between these guys in the Delta and these guys in Appalachia.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right, Dan. It's weird because Hank Williams Sr., who I just love, and my grandfather played that stuff all the time. He was taught, like in his book, it says that by a guy named Todd to play guitar, who was a blues guy. And I remember Hank Williams Jr., Hank's son, talking about that. If you really listen to his dad's music, you could totally hear that blues. And it absolutely, you can hear it. It's right in there. It's like it's the same thing, but you're right. You say that to some people and they don't get it. No, it's not. It's not the same. It's like, yeah, it is. It is. It's the same. Like you said, that authenticity is in there, and it's yeah, I love all that stuff, and that's great. I love Martin guitars. As far as acoustics go, perfect segue. I have a D28 here. This is actually a special model, because it's a D28, and it's Martin. But as you pan up, you're like, it's the same, and then it's like, oh, what? It's like, what is that? So it's Martin did I don't know if I can get this. You probably can't see it, but in the sound hole, CF Martin and Fred Gretsch signed the inside of this, because I don't know how many they did, but it's based on Merle Travis's. Merle Travis had a guitar that had the Bigsby headstock. So it is made by Martin, and it's a D28, but they did a limited run of that so I play this one out all the time. It's got a maple neck on it, so it's different than what you'd have on a regular Martin D28, but it's just a great piece for acoustics. That's one of my main ones I play out all the time. And I think every time I bring it out, people come up and say, like, what the heck is that? Because it's a weird looking, guitar. You just don't see it very often with that headstock like that. But that's great. You've got a Martin. So what year is your D28?
It's a 2017 new. Got it for Christmas, and I've got to tell you, it's again, I've had a lot of acoustic guitars over the years, Todd. A lot of them, I've got a Banchetti, Paris Banchetti D28 copy that was made in Miami by a guy from Uruguay who immigrated to the States, and he was built a bit of a reputation building classical guitars. I've got Epiphone, Hummingbirds, I've had, Yamahas, all great guitars, all good guitars. But I tell you, for holding the note, there's nothing like a Martin. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. This is a true story. When I first got it, I'm sitting on my couch, and I've had dinner. I've just had dinner. I'm sitting there and I'm playing some notes, and I'm hearing something, and so this is a true story. So because I'm laying back on the couch playing, the rumbles of my stomach. This is a true story. I'm not come through the sound hole.
I love it. That's great.
Of my, and I'm hearing it.
No, I totally believe you, because that's how they. Well, it's weird because in the, I don't know what modern times, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. Taylor guitars and fantastic. I love Taylor guitars. I'm not putting them down at all, but it's like you either gravitate toward a Taylor or a Martin. I'm a Martin guy. I just always have been. Connie, my wife, who also plays, Connie plays like 20 instruments, but we toured the Martin plant several years ago in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And I mean, you walk out of there and you're like, wow, I know why they're so expensive. I mean, it's everything you would think it is. There's like these old ladies with sandpaper on a pencil, and like where the tuners go in the headstock, they're up there like sanding. It's ridiculous. So much of it's done by hand still. It's unbelievable.
So when you feel this part here, it's not nice and smooth like it is on all the other guitars I've had. You can actually, it's carved. You're exactly right, Todd.
Yeah,
carved. You can feel the undulations.
Right. So it's like, yeah, Martins are not cheap, but you're kind of getting what you pay for. I probably have too many guitars here to get into this is a 57 Les Paul custom. And the thing that's cool about this one is my friend Roland James. I'm having the worst time with the camera here. He signed that on the back of the headstock, and you can kind of see. Wow, I'm like just terrible at this. And that little logo there. It's one of the first historic ones they made. This is a 93, but it's a 57 reissue. So when the custom shop first started, we ran the numbers at Gibson and stuff, and this was one of the first ones they made. And Roland James was Jerry Lee Lewis's guitar player, and he played one that was a lot like this. He said it reminded him of his. So, Roland played this, and we recorded with Roland down in Memphis. He ran Sam Phillips recording for years. He passed away several years ago, but this is a great piece. I mean, it's just, as far as Les Pauls go, it's like, wow. It's just an awesome guitar. The Modern, which I'm sure you've heard about, it's kind of taken on like a mythical proportion now. These things, they always call them like the broomstick guitars with the Gumby headstock. It does look like Gumby, but these Carina. Because you're probably familiar with the Modern story. 58, the Flying V, Explorer, and all that came out. Supposedly, a Modern was released, and when you put my links up, you can go. I did an interview with Rendell Wall, who worked at Gibson in 1960, and he says he played the original one that they had,
really?
And they used to have. He said they had a thing called the morgue at Gibson, where they would like guitars that just were kind of dead in the water. They'd put them there, and he went in the morgue and checked it out because he needed a rock and roll guitar he was doing a play. He was in Bye Bye Birdie production of the show, and he said he used it for that show, brought it back that night, put it in the morgue, and he never saw it again. But the minute Moderns like this came out, he was like, that's the guitar that I played at the. I know Billy Gibbons claims he has one, and nobody's really ever seen it, but he claims he's got. But in like this is an 82. In 82, they reissued these with all like Karina and stuff, and the Gumby headstock, and they kind of did it like right off the blueprint of what the Tim Shaw humbuckers in there. So these are just really cool. They're ugly, and that's what I love about them. A lot of people are like, "That's an ugly guitar." It's like, yeah, it is. That's what I love about it. They're just, they're just really cool. Rendell works at Heritage Guitar now in Kalamazoo. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys, but they were the old guys that used to work at Gibson, and they started Heritage. This is a Gary Moore model, so you can kind of see on the headstock there, it's got Gary Moore in red, and on the front of the After the War album, Gary Moore, you can see like the headstock, it says the Heritage on it, and so they did 75 of these in amber, which is what this is, and they did 75 in almond burst, and that these came out in about 89. But this is another beautiful, I mean, Gary approved everything on them, and it's really cool too. They do like the wood pick guard that's like actually carved maple that pick guard is made out of, and then the EMG pickups, of course. But no, when you told me to have some guitars ready, I got some.
So is that out of phase in the middle position, Todd?
You know what? You would think it would be, but it's not. You would think it would be like you would think it would be more like greeny, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But no, it's not. It's not out of phase. I guess the only other one I have sitting here to show that's really cool, speaking of my friend Jim McCarty earlier, who from Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels and Cactus, this is the Jim McCarty model. These are super rare. It's a Les Paul custom, but wow. What they did is they inlaid, if you get up real close here, you could see there's a rocket in that one inlay, and then there's a cactus right there for the band, because the rocket's a cactus, and Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels a wheel, so they put those three on there. I know they did, I want to say 6 or 8 of these maybe in the first run, and then they did like another 5, and that was it. So there's only like 13 of these out there. And on the back I had like Jim signed it to me, like to Todd, and then he like signed it on there. And there's footage up on my YouTube page. I just back in November, I went out to Detroit, and Jim and I jammed with I played this guitar, and it's really cool to call him a friend. Jim's such a great guy, such an underrated guy too. To me, McCarty is the missing link between like Hendrix and those guys and like the 70s Jimmy Page. I mean, Page was kind of part of the 60s guys, but like the 70s guitar players, Joe Perry, Jimmy Page, that whole era, and McCarty was there in both. And the new issue of Vintage Guitar talks about Jim. I think I have it here somewhere. They finally did like an interview with him, and the guy, he never gets enough credit for what he really did, especially with the band Cactus, that early stuff. I mean, that's just, God, the guitar is just ripping on that stuff. I know there's a tribute album coming out that Joe Bonamassa plays on, and a few other guys, and Carmine Appice, who was the drummer for Cactus. They're putting that whole thing out pretty soon, and Jim's playing on it. So,
wow. You're going to have to do us a favor, Todd. You're going to have to send us those links. I'm seriously, when we finish the show and I do some things, I'm going to check out that acoustic album that you've mentioned. I'm going to check out. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know anything, but I'm on fire. I want to catch want to catch the message, and I think we should all do, if you're watching a replay, go and check out Jim, because, you know, if anybody is saying that this guy is a conduit between eras, wow, that's worth checking out, because that's an important position to be in, Todd.
Well, yeah, you can, if you do a search for Jim on YouTube, you'll see Joe Bonamassa when he comes through Detroit.
Yeah.
He's brought Jim out several times, and his exact introduction was the most badass guitar player to ever come out of Detroit. 100% agreed. There's no, McCarty is just such an influence on me. So when I started doing interviews for buddy guys and stuff, I knew he was one of the guys I wanted to track down, and him and I have become great friends over the years. And we talk all the time, and he's so underrated, and just such a great guy too. It's great to see somebody like him that, the early Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, that was like the first blues rock band. If you that was the Yardbirds and all, that was right there in that same era. They were doing it. It was like over here, but it was like all during that same time. And so it's really weird to watch the progression that Jim, made, excuse me. And, just the unbelievable. I mean, the guy should be way, way, way more recognized than he is. Exactly. Van Halen talked about Cactus. They always redid old. If you listen to the song "Let Me Swim" from Cactus off the first album, listen to the intro to that and tell me it's not the beginning of Eruption. It's that. And Eddie said that. I mean, I know Eddie. Jim's got stories about how Eddie would call him up all the time and say, "You're the greatest." Yep. Robert Schaffner, rhythm section of Cactus was Bogart. Yeah. That played with Jeff Beck, because that's what happened. They were Bogart and Appice were going to form a band with Jeff. Jeff got in a car wreck, and then they got a hold of Jim McCarty and formed Cactus. And then when Cactus broke up, they formed Beck, Bogart, and Appice. But yeah, I love Jim, man. I can't say enough things about him. He's a great guy too.
Well, we'll certainly be attaching those links. Do you have for anybody that's watching now that wants to immediately go and check out a Cactus album that might be inspired, that hasn't heard of a Cactus album, do you have a recommendation, Todd?
Yes. Let's see here. I'm sure I got them sitting right here. At one time, believe it or not, my CDs were somewhat organized, but you know how that goes. But I don't know if I have them right here immediately, but I would say if you're really new to just the Cactology from Rhino, put that out. That's a great one to check out, because it's kind of a mix of everything. So you're kind of getting a little bit of everything that they kind of do. The first Cactus album that has a cactus on it, it's got a red cover. That's fantastic. I would also say Restrictions is an album that's called, and Rhino put out a bunch of these things years ago, like Cactus, Fully Unleashed, and actually this just came out again this month. There's like an 8 CD Cactus thing that I think Atco just released, and it's this. Wow. So it's like their live gigs. Rusty Day, the singer, I know Bon Scott and several people from AC/DC always said he was an influence. It's like, like this band should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's like they've influenced so many people. Van Halen, and it's like, why is this band not like a household name? I don't understand, but there's so many guys you could say that about. I'm trying to see what else I have. But yeah, I would say the Restrictions album from Cactus, my friend Jim McCarty playing on all that. And then even check out his stuff with the Rockets. Later on, they did stuff like the Rockets and No Ballads. that was like the Rockets were a great band out of Detroit. There's Jim right there, second from the right. Johnny Bedanjic on drums, who's like drum monster, so anything with the Rockets, that's all McCarty. And then, like I said, even go back, and if you get the Hell Drivers, that was Jim McCarty. Another one, if you can find that, that's a newer one that just came out a few years back, and live from Detroit. And Jim's just on fire with his, Les Paul Custom. And but if you could find the 9 to the Universe Jimi Hendrix album, there's a song on there called Jimmy Jam. That's Jim jamming with Jim McCarty, with Jimi Hendrix, because Jim McCarty played in the Buddy Miles Express, and Buddy Miles obviously was tight with Hendrix, and so Hendrix was in the studio all the time. And you can read. I have a huge interview with Jim. I've done several of them now up on my Facebook page and all that. And he talks about that, how Hendrix engineered that Buddy Miles album, so he'd be laying down his solos, and there's Jimi Hendrix in the control room staring out, and he's like, "Man, you talk about intimidation." but him and Jimmy were really tight, so it's really, again, he's like the guy that he kind of is the connection to me from that era right through like the 70s and 80s guitar players. Jim's been there for all that stuff.
Fascinating. And you've converted one person already. Greg Roberts Tune says that he'll be checking out Cactus. Cheers, Todd.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Check out Cactus. What a band, man. They're just awesome stuff. Yeah, if you love blues rock, you'll love Cactus. It's really in your face blues rock, as great as it gets.
Thank you, Julianne. Yes, we're on the same page. Todd, Cactus most certainly should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Jim McCarty should have his own showcase of his music history there.
Yeah, these were the other one. I'm sorry. But these are like Cactus, the studio sessions, if you can find that one. There's Carmine Apiece on the right, Tim Bogert right next to him, Rusty Day. Or maybe I'm on the left. I don't know. But there's McCarty sitting down right there. That's Tim Bogert over here, and then Carmine Apiece on the end. Rusty Day singing. Even check out like Cactus Black Dawn. That just came out in 2016. Jim's not currently playing with Cactus, but he was on this album, so that's all. Try to find the Black Dawn album. This is I never mind have a problem promoting Jim, because I love him. The guy's he's such a great player, and he should be way more recognized than he is. But anyway,
well, like I say, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on a replay, and if you're watching now and you want to go and follow those links that we're going to attach to this video, come back in a couple of hours and we'll attach those, because Todd will send them. He's going to send us his links, and then under that we'll have Jim's links, because that's what we love to do on this channel. We love promoting. And it's, as the Rock Professor will always tell you, if it's in our wheelhouse, we'll do it. So if you can do that. There was a comment earlier from Amy where Amy was saying we got to come back for part 2. I promise, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back within 4 weeks. Probably the same time slot works for me, but Todd and I will work it out, but we'll come back for part 2, and as Amy's requested, Todd will give us his resume. We've had a jam session on the channel, ladies and gentlemen, today. It's been a great jam session.
I would love to talk to you about, as you know, I just put a thing up today. Guitar player, actually, when BB King passed away, got a hold of me because I was out with BB for years when I was a kid. They let me kind of just follow him around and stuff. So that would be great to talk about.
Well, that's the subject. That's the subject. Besides Todd, we'll talk about that. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, everybody. We'll go and do a roll call. If you are watching, please go and subscribe to Todd, to what he's doing over there. Please share this channel and his channel on your social media links.
Promotion.
Here he is there. There he is. Easy.
This just happened to be laying here. I hang this up at my gigs, but why not hold it up? So if you search Todd Beebe Music, YouTube, I've always got interviews, lessons, guitar review. It's crazy. There's never enough hours in the day to get it all in, but it's fun.
I'm inspired by the hour and a half that we've spent together, or a little bit over an hour and a half. Todd, I've checked out your channel. I'm familiar with what you do on your Facebook page as well. Besides being a performing musician and a guitar player, you know, Todd's an organic intellectual. He's writing and sharing his experiences about the music that we love. So, you know, that's important too. And for Todd to come on and just give us a brief snip of what he does, and to come back and volunteer, you know, some more of his experiences and thoughts, is a privilege for us, Todd.
Oh, well, Andrew, man, it's a privilege for me. Thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back. I mean, I talked to Jeff and Bob about this when we get talking. I'm like, I could probably, 12 hours would go by and we still wouldn't have enough time. I could talk. So, man, please keep me posted when you want to have me back. I can't wait.
We'll work that out. We'll get Todd on, but also too, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to work out a time with obviously Jeff and Bob and Curtis and Todd. It's going to be controlled mayhem. We'll get together. We've done that on this channel. We've had about 7 or 8 people on here talking about, so we can do that, and we'll get together and we'll have a debrief, and we'll have a chat about the gig that everybody is talking about. We'll also attach a link to Bob and Jeff's book too. So if you're watching on a replay and you haven't got this book, we'll every time we can, we're always going to push this book. Grab your book, please, Todd.
Yeah, let's see. Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
You got to go and grab yourself a copy of this book.
Yeah, this is just unbelievable. And I know you can, there's an email address in there. I know you know this, Andrew, but where you can order a print too directly from Jeff, collectorprints@gmail.com. Yeah, and any of these photos in here, if you email the page number and what picture you want, you could get a beautiful, I know you have one, Andrew. And they're just awesome. The quality, just top notch. You can frame it and Jeff signs it. It's a museum piece, it's something you can always have.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you, bro. I'm going to do a quick shout out before we wind up. Fruitcake Tony, very, very good friend of the channel. Please, ladies and gentlemen, go and see Fruitcake Tony. His channel is attached to our channel's page. I'll make a point of making sure, Todd, that your page is attached to our channel's page too. I'll do that as well as attaching that to the stream. Amy, thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us. Julianne, thank you for the wonderful comments and the great... well, absolutely. Julianne, if you and Bob want to tear that up, it would be a pleasure for us to host Jim on the channel.
Yeah, I would love to get... I know Jim's not a big internet guy, but I will definitely run it by him, yes, because that would be fantastic to get him on here for sure.
Would love to. He's got an open invitation to join us. Greg Roberts Tune, thank you, brother, for hanging out with us. And go and check out Cactus. Absolutely well worth it. Holly Lewis, wow, good to see you, Holly Lewis. The Rock Professor is in here. As usual, the Rock Professor is a big part of what we do on the channel. Thank you, Simon. Thank you for hanging out with us. Bob, there he is. Thank you, Bob.
Yes. Bob, yes, happy birthday, Amy.
I'm going up. I think we had Christopher Live Sawa here. Look, you guys are all important to us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being even interested in what we do here on this channel. And please go and check out Todd. Todd, you got the last word, and then we're going to cruise, brother.
Well, thank you, first of all, Andrew, for having me on. This is awesome. I can't wait to come back. There's so many things to talk about, but just keep the blues alive out there. Keep, real music alive. You could tell what's real and what's not. There's a lot of stuff that's fluff nowadays, and that seems to be what gets all the attention. But I know there's many of us, like right here, right now, that are out there that know what the organic real stuff is. And it's important that we always keep that alive. Like Muddy Waters said to Buddy Guy, don't let the blues die and don't let real music die. So always keep the music alive. That's my final word. That means everything.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Andrew.